Hi, I'm Christina Johnson. I'm your host for the Pan de Dios podcast. The Pan de Dios came to me here in Mexico as an expression of goodness, of gentility, of kindness. And the podcast is about Pan de Dios moments in your life. All right. So tell me the story that you wish to tell, and so that we can start there, what it is that you wanted to share.
Well, I want to share actually that I'm looking back at my life in these 78 years of life on the planet. I'm looking back at life and seeing, what my purpose was, and that purpose kind of was revealed gradually. So um, everyone has a story, and my story is really connected with staying in touch with the divine within myself and seeing the divine everywhere.
and and that's a huge story, and I've known you for a long time. And I don't know if you'd been well, I had been to India in 1969 to 70, somewhere in there, and I know you made a trip to India. I think you made a trip to India.
I've been to India about 12 or 13 times.
There you go. So it was like we had these things in common way back when I met you two, about knowing that there is a great deal more than what we perceive in the physical, and knowing that there is a great power that is both within us, in touch with another source, another way, another a flame, a fire of divinity. Um, and so I'd love to know more about that. Like what was the most moving time for you? Or I'm sure there were several where you you felt that God. Before now, perhaps you feel it all the time or most of the time. But what was it like? Describe it to me.
I think it started out for me in a church in Northport, Long Island. I was born in San Francisco, and then family moved into Long Island, first upstate New York, Bath, New York, and then into Long Island. And I remember that I was raised, me and my brother and sister were raised by our mom. Our father had passed his business partner was a little bit drunk, and he was driving, and he tried to race ahead of a train across the tracks. And in those days, in that time, there was no railing that automatically shut, so the
Oh,
cars couldn't go.
oh
So
yeah.
he was a little bit inebriated, and he couldn't judge it correctly, and the car slammed into him, so he died instantly. And my father was hit by the train, big huge train crush, and they were so far from a hospital that he died on the way to the hospital. So uh, that's an intro to my mom raising three kids on her own, and my mom, uh, working three jobs to raise three kids on her own. And she often did not go to church, but this one Sunday she went to church. And I remember we were singing a song called Onward Christian Soldiers in the church. It's an Episcopalian church in Northport, Long Island. And I remember turning to my mom and looking at her, and we were both singing at the same time. So I'm looking up in her eyes. And when we were singing and I was looking into her eyes, I got a rush of energy, which now I know I call it Kundalini, the divine energy within us. And in that divine energy within us, I had my first taste of bliss. So that was my first experience singing in a church, singing Onward Christian Soldiers, which is basically about being in the army of love of Jesus Christ. So that was my first inkling that there was something more in the world than just physicality. And that was very rare because my mom often didn't go to church.
And how old were
So
you?
I was 7 years old.
7. And
Yeah.
and so did you the first thing that occurs to me is, who did you have to share this with? Were you able to like tell anyone or describe it, or
No.
no?
I I figured it out. The experience was always there, right? So I figured out only later on. So this is like 7 to about 20. In 20, I met my first spiritual master, spiritual teacher from India. And um, he wrote a lot. He wrote many books, hundreds and hundreds of books. He was an artist and musician and a book writer and an avid athlete. Um, so one time I was in Fairleigh Dickinson University. He used to give lectures around the world in many of the U.S. universities around the world. So this was Fairleigh Dickinson. I was living on Long Island, so it wasn't much of a drive from Long Island to, I guess Fairleigh Dickinson was in New Jersey. And he called his disciples up onto stage. And at that time, right before that time, I renounced the world, 20-year-old, what am I renouncing the world for? I mean, it was a spiritual concept, right? So I renounced the world, and I had a shaved head. I had a shaved head, and later on I regretted it because I had given up my clothes, and I gave up my new warm winter coat. So I said, "What am I being stupid, giving up my clothes?" Anyway, so I'm at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and he calls his disciples up front, and he says to we disciples, "What is your favorite passage from my writing?" And so I started repeating my favorite passage was, "When you know how to love again, the Son of God, you shall know how to love the entire humanity. For deep inside each human being is the Christ that lives, the Christ that breathes." Who is the Christ? Not the mere physical body, but the consciousness infinite, the peace infinite, the love infinite, the joy infinite, the light infinite. So I connected. I look back at my life, and at 7, I had got this taste of the divine. And it was a taste through Jesus, right? And so my favorite passage in his writings was about Jesus. So I made the connection in my mind, in my heart, that Jesus led me to this teacher, Sri Chinmoy. So that was and then, of course, then I was deeply immersed in spiritual philosophy, and I could talk to lots of other fellow disciples about everything. So then I could start speaking about what my connection to the 7-year-old boy was to this time when I'm 20 years old.
And it was it was really early, about that time, because my first trip to India, I was 19, so that was right around, um, yeah. So when I made before I made that trip, I don't know if you know this, when I was 8 years old in Mexico, you and I have more in common than we even thought. When I was 8 years old in Mexico, I was living in San Miguel de Allende. My mother had moved us there from Texas, and there were about 35 foreigners living there then. And, but the art school had opened, and I was this little kid, and I was going to a Mexican Catholic school with dirt floors, but I didn't speak Spanish. And I had a horse. I've always, this is like my connection with horses. This is why it's my spiritual connection with horses. And I went out riding, and I took my little picnic with me. And as I was there, perched on the top of this mountain, the sky opened up, and all of this kaleidoscope of color came flooding across the sky. And the face of Jesus opened in the sky, and he said,
Whoa.
"I am always with you."
Yeah. So that's your connection to both San Miguel de Allende and Jesus and a horse.
And horses.
Yeah.
And then, when I went to India, and that was in 68, so I was whatever, 19 or 20. And that's when I met Sai Baba.
Oh, yes,
And
yes,
then when Sai Baba, at that time, there weren't a lot of people. It wasn't like the thousands that were there later.
yes.
And he took me behind this little curtain, and he said, "Why are you here?" or something. And I I didn't know what to say because I was flooded with that divinity, with that feeling
Yes.
of being next to somebody with so much loving and so much light. And he said, I am always with you,
Mm.
your mother and your father.
Uh-huh.
And I was just
Beautiful.
flooded because that's what Jesus had, that was like a repeat of what had
Yes.
happened, you know?
Yes.
And it was just, and I was reading autobiography of a yogi
Mm.
at the time. So anyway, I didn't know that about you at 7, or I don't remember that. And now you know about what happened to me at 8.
Yes. Yes.
These and do you think? Do you do you think like uh, how is that? How how does that make such a foundation? What is the foundation that makes for your life? Like when you have that experience,
I'd say
how do you
look
operate
looking.
in the world and then
Yes.
in the divine at the same time?
Yes. I remember my transition was through sports, really, So I got that taste of bliss at 7 years old, and I really couldn't talk to anybody about it. My brother and my sister, my mother, I couldn't talk to about it. So I then immediately went into the sports world, right? I played baseball, football, and basketball, and that is not necessarily meditation, but it's the foundation of meditation, because in sports you learn to concentrate, especially football, throwing the football as a quarterback. I was a running back. So you get ready to fire, right? You concentrate and get ready to fire. I was a pitcher, so you get ready and you concentrate to throw a pitch. So I think the sports is a great bridge from outer existence, let's say, to inner life, right? When you develop these powers to concentrate, the next step after concentrating is meditating. So the transition to me was bliss, experience this blissful thing as a result of connection to the song, connection to my mother's eyes and my eyes meeting. And that was a focus that led to experiencing bliss. And so I transited to sports. And then I met Sri Chinmoy at 20 years old. And then I met the Sufis. Chinmoy had a spiritual master from a Sufi spiritual master sitting in the front seat of a church he had in Jamaica, Queens. So then when I left Sri Chinmoy's path, I had the Sufi connection. And that experience at 7, bliss, meeting Sri Chinmoy, having again a spiritual connection with Jesus, my favorite expression he wrote, and then being connected to the Sufis. The Sufis kind of mellowed me out to awakening me to living, having a human connection with all life. The Sufis are very much connected to the idea of friendship, that your teacher is your best friend. So I started really getting more connected to my humanness. And then those three forces led me to my current teacher. And basically, he's telling his disciples that he's our best friend. His wife, his name is Amma Padmavati. So they're telling the way to approach them, the way to have a strong connection with them is treat them as your best friends. And the Sufis, for 27 years, I was with the Sufis, and they said that friendship is the best relationship to have with the divine. Have the divine as your friend, because you can speak to your friend in any way. You can share your difficult times, your hard times, your easy times, your joyful times, your sad times. So that bridge through sports prepared me to start again now focusing on my inner life. Focusing on my outer life, I did that quite well through sports. And as you know, founding a school of a massage and energy healing in Santa Fe,
And also
which,
you're a dancer.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, but
because
not in a formal way as you, with your dance teaching
yeah,
like a focus through dance. I'm more like a freestyle dancer, as you know.
yeah. But still, dance is one of those things. Well, look at the Sufis.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of the physical things that we can do as human beings that can bring us into this wonderful state of oneness, whether it's with another person or, it's something that just can really lift you and bring that heart so alive, to
Yeah.
be able to do that. So what would be, um, what would, like, if somebody listening to this podcast, the Pan de Dios podcast, Pan de Dios in Spanish is bread of God, but it's an expression, and it's Mexican. It's not all of Latin America. It's Mexican, and something that's Pan de Dios is uncorrupted good. It's goodness.
Mm.
It's it's loving. It's pure good. And that's why I wanted this, and I wanted the stories to be of that, because uh, in the present world, often it's certainly with media, there are not enough stories of goodness. So if you were going to uh, educate, would be the word, a person on being able to recognize and commit or devote themselves, as a better word, recognize and devote themselves to a life of spirit, what kinds of suggestions would you give them?
It's all about self-love, I think. Self-love is the first step. So one of the things that my current teacher showed me, I was in India in a 28-day process, and we were lying down on yoga mats, and he was playing very loud music, and in not in the English language, just probably in a Sanskrit language, right? And um, what he gave me is I first started smelling the most obnoxious, difficult, smelly smell I'd ever smelt in my life. And we did the same process 2 days in a row. So I, at that time, lying on my yoga mat, and we were doing the breath of fire, Kundalini breath of fire, listening to this loud music. And I get this really terrible, the most disgusting smell I'd ever smelled in my life. And I thought, okay, there's 450 people in this room, and half the room was Chinese students that had come for the process. And I said, a lot of people must be farting, right? So that's why this difficult, most obnoxious smell I've ever smelled. So then the second day we did the same process, and this smell came to me, same terrible smell. And so I thought, okay, Bhagavan must be trying to show me something. And as soon as I said that, he brought me into my mother's womb, and I saw a deep trauma that I have. This is kind of bridging. I'm remembering the question. And the deep trauma was seeing my father and mother arguing. And when I came into my mother's womb, I was like a little light.
Mm-hmm.
I was not in the image of a human being, but I was in the image of a flame.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was observing my mother and father arguing, incidentally, we were born in an enlightened state. So in the womb, we're an enlightened being. So I was in the shape of a flame, and I could hear what was going on, and I could see what was going on. I could see my mother and father arguing. And um, so my father wanted to become a lawyer, but I was the third child coming aboard. So he said to my mom, look, we can't afford to have another child coming along. And um, so basically the idea came, of abortion, that kind of thing. My mother said, no, I'm not aborting this child. This is me understanding what was going on from the womb. And so I took that, I misinterpreted that as I wasn't good enough. I was not good enough. My father didn't want me. I must not be good enough to have my father in my life. So that it's called samskara. That samskara deeply touched my being, and it was the source of all my relationship breakups. When the pressure got put on the relationship in whatever way, I interpreted that as I was not good enough to be in that relationship. So, so I would say, people, we must raise children like, they're precious beings. Treat the boy like a king, treat the girl, if it's a girl child, like a queen, and just be loving and as compassionate as possible so they don't get the wrong message or get the message they misinterpret. So the message to people is to develop the belief in self, the belief in the divinity of self, the divinity of all life, the divinity of horses, plants, the divinity of human beings. Have that go deep inside you, and be it your self-image, your loving yourself, and your own divinity, getting connected to your own divinity through loving yourself. You had that message from Sai Baba and from Jesus. I've had that same message. After that, after seeing my deepest samskara, Bhagavan then took me to what's called Shiva Loka. Shiva Loka, and he took me to Shiva Loka. So I had that terrible experience, what the smell was all about. He took me into the womb and showed me that I misinterpreted my father saying that he couldn't afford to have another child on the way, as he must not love me enough. Mm-hmm. I'm not good enough. And so right after that terrible experience, Bhagavan took me to Shiva Loka, and he took me to Shiva Loka. I was lying down. I was a statue of Shiva in this experience, inner experience. And from lying down position, I went straight up. And then the disciples of Shiva came marching in. And then when they got in front of me, they went towards me, and they were playing all this musical instrument, the drums and bells and cymbals and things like that. So I experienced my deepest samskara, not loving myself, not feeling good enough. And I look back at that, and that was the reason of all my relationship breakups. And then he healed that with this great being of Shiva. In the Hindu Trinity, there's not, in the Christian Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. In the Hindu Trinity, there's God as the creator, God as the preserver, and God as the transformer. So he took me and he showed me that part of my being, that divinity part of my being, and along with it, music. And so he healed that. He healed that deepest samskara within me. And then my relationship started changing after that experience, slowly, not instantly overnight. So the message to people is to pray. I would say pray, to get in touch with your inner divinity as soon as possible.
Okay, Robert, one more question for you. Because
Okay.
this is, because it's not that I don't have them. I have many questions, but we're going to in it. But if you at this time we're going to one of my spiritual teachers is John Roger, and in a workshop that I did called the Spiritual Warrior, there's exercises that we do in order to familiarize ourselves and know our spiritual warrior. And one of the words that was used that I really liked was to wear this like a mantle. And the word mantle, like imagining some really wonderful covering that's almost like royal, the word mantle, like what mantle would you give right now, just in general, to the world, to like if you were going to either one you already know, like a protective mantra, a mantra of blessing, or just your own words?
Well, I think the mantra, we just passed the month of May, right? We're in the month of June. Every May, I've been with Bhagavan for 23 years. So I've been chanting this mantra for 23 years. And May is the Mula Mantra month. So every May, I try to beat my previous record. So in this month of May, I chanted this mantra over 36,000 times. The mantra is Om, and Om is the vibration, the sound, the creative sound, the sound of existence, the sound of the sun that makes the same sound. NASA scientists put some kind of receiving sound commitment in front of the sun, and they got the sound of Om. So it's Om Sat Chit Ananda Para Brahma Purushottama Paramatma Sri Bhagavati, which is the feminine aspect of divinity, Sameta, together with Sri Bhagavate, the masculine aspect of divinity, Namaha. I bow down and I salute that great divinity. So the whole mantra is the whole of creation. Every aspect of creation is in that mantra. And so that mantra is very, very powerful. It's called the Mula mantra. Star Mulam is the star at the center of the galaxy. Star Mulam now is flooding our earth with a lot of divine energy as we're making a transition between the dark age, Kali Yuga, to the golden age, Sat Yuga. So that mantra connects all of creation as a vibration, as a series of vibrations, and those vibrations keep me constantly aware of the divinity all around me, inside of me, and outside of me.
Okay. I appreciate that. I honor that. I thank you. I love you, Robert. And may this Pan de Dios, may your bread of God always be flowing so sweetly from your heart and in your words, through your eyes, through your relationships. And God bless you.
Thank you, Christina. God bless you.
I hope you enjoyed the Pan de Dios moments. Please let us know if you have a moment that you'd like to share on the podcast. And goodbye now, and may your Pan de Dios always be rising.